Greetings, everyone. DFG here, Gideon's Flight. Hey, guys. I just want to bring up again the whole thing around reparations. Not thing, but I want to remind, my listeners that, the reparations conversation is nowhere near coming to its end. As a matter of fact, it's only gaining momentum and gaining strength. But I want to talk again why reparations is due and why it's so important for us to understand that this is not a situation, or we're not talking about something exclusively that happened in our past, but we're talking about a continuation of oppression, economic suppression, as well as the mass prison industry complex still utilizing our people, to undergird the economic base or the economic foundation of the United States of America. As you guys have heard me say before, and if you know anything about historical facts, the first stock that was traded on Wall Street, the first commodity that was ever traded on Wall Street were human capital, human beings, Hebrew Israelites, so-called Negroes here on Turtle Island, now called United States of America. And it's interesting that, as this conversation continues to grow and to begin to morphing into a powerful, strong movement, that we still hear the resistance out there as though, around the lines of, it's the past, let the past go. But let me say something to you clearly. First of all, slavery did not end in the United States in 1865. The Emancipation Proclamation was passed in 1865. But if you know anything about the sharecropping system, then you understand clearly that the so-called emancipated slaves, or those who were enslaved, went right back to those same plantations and had to sharecrop, for pennies on a dollar. And also there were laws put in place, vagrant laws, what are the laws? The black codes, etc., to ensure that they stayed on those plantations and pretty much worked for free. Yes, they were told that, that the slave owner would share the crops with them, and at the end of the year, they would divvy up the dividends, and, the slave would get the sharecropper, slaves, would get their portion. But as you know, they had to buy everything from the plantation owners, the so-called store owners. And by the time those store owners finished with the books, our people were farther in debt than they ever could have been, even as those who were enslaved. Because some of our people who were enslaved were actually able to earn an income, if you understand or if you know that part about history. But when so-called, the black codes or emancipation happened right after and during the Reconstruction period, sharecroppers ended up having to get farther and farther in debt. And then they had what they called debt penalties. If you know what I'm saying, if you didn't pay your debt, then you were automatically in prison. If you tried to run off those plantations, or escape, then they would put bounties out on you, and you would be recaptured and sold into prison camps. And you were left in those prison camps for the most part for the rest of your life, which typically those who were enslaved on those prison camps, they pretty much last about 5 years. And there's a book called Worse Than Slavery. I can't think of the author's name, but look that book up, Worse Than Slavery. And it tells you about the plantation to the prison system, the prison lease system, and what happened to those so-called free men who broke any kind of laws like not having a job, laws like standing around outside of a building, laws like stealing a chicken. There's a story of a 10-year-old who gets 5 years of hard labor for stealing a chicken. So when you start to hear this story about no, slavery was the past and had nothing, that is a flat out lie. Those of us who were enslaved our ancestors went right from the prison system to the sharecropping system, and they stayed in that system to the early 60s. Yes, to the early 1960s. And the repercussions of the what I would call the remnants of that is still affecting our people today. As you look in this particular country where our men represent 4% of the population, yet almost 60% of the prison are those who are in prison, and that number includes Hispanics as well. So this whole argument about slavery is something of the past and we need to let it go, and that is a flat out lie. It's bullshit. And if you do anything about history, the history of the United States, as a matter of fact, I would tell you that Lincoln, when Lincoln passed the so-called Emancipation Proclamation, he didn't even free the slaves that were in the so-called Union, or the slave states who stayed a part of the Union. States like, I want to say Kentucky, Maryland, and it may have been one other state. It was one other state. I can't give you that particular state. Those states who stayed with the Union were able to keep their slaves, although, so the Emancipation Proclamation was only passed for the states who had seceded from the Union. So he had no intention of freeing any damn body. His sole purpose was to save capitalism in the United States at the expense of the black so-called, enslaved among us. All right? So let's get that narrative straight. My grandparents, you've heard me talk about this before, were born in the late 1800s. And they were on plantations. And they went through every kind of, oppression America could offer, the so-called, enslaved here in this country. And if you go study the civil rights movement, and there's a documentary called Eyes on the Prize, and you see how they were shooting and killing and lynching and hanging and burning, our people through the early 20th century. Then you tell me where that liberation was. When were we free as a people? Hell, we're not even free today. As I shared with you on the video prior to this video, I get stopped coming out of Walmart. After I made a purchase in the parking lot, confronted or affronted by a police officer questioning whether or not, I paid for the product that's already bagged, in the parking lot, putting it into my car. I went in Walmart with money in my damn pockets. I didn't have to explain to them how much money I had in my pocket when I went in. So why the hell do I have to validate how much money that I spent in Walmart that was in my bags when I came out? If you didn't need to know what I had in my pocket when I went in, then you didn't need to know what I had in my bags when I came out, because what I had in my bags, the money in my pocket when I went in, was utilized for that product that I had in my damn bags, which is my private property and none of Walmart's damn business after I buy it or after I've purchased it. So that oppression, that marginalization of us as a people is still in place today. And that's why reparations are demanded by our people. Pay us what you owe. And we need to, again, boycott this whole presidential election and any major election as far as I'm concerned, unless reparations is 100% on their platform and they've got a clear plan, well thought out plan that they're going to initiate immediately if they want, the support of the so-called black vote here in the United States. Okay? But let nobody deceive you in terms of when this slavery ended. But how could it have ended when you start looking at Jim Crow? Again, vagrant laws, pig laws, black laws, every kind of oppression. We talked about what happened in Black Wall Street, which there were many, many Black Wall Streets. We all know the stories of Rosewood and many, many other stories in Detroit, Cleveland, Memphis, Tennessee, New Orleans, Louisiana, Jackson, Mississippi, Macomb, Mississippi. I can go on and on and on. That's why it's important to go back and study and read. Again, go read the book, Worse Than Slavery. Go back and look for the documentary, Eyes on the Prize. You follow me? And you will see, all of these atrocities that have continued to keep our people down and to abuse us, oppress us, and murder us in the name of white supremacy, in the name of white privilege, that this is the white man's country, which is a flat out lie. He stole it. And now it's time for him to repay what he stole. And now he's taking a position, many of them, not all of them. But any white person who refused to admit the guilt and the blood that was shared of our people, then that white person has blood on their hands. As far as I'm concerned, they're just as vicious and wicked as their cousins or neighbors or fellow Europeans, whatever ethnic group you're from, that you're just as guilty as they are. So if you can't take a bold position and say, yes, we owe them, and yes, we are going to demand that the United States of America put in place a program, economic programs, to uplift the people or the ancestors of those same children who were stripped of all dignity from the moment Europeans walked on this country, which was ours, to today, as you look at the mass prison industry complex and how it's abusing. Go to look at what's going on in Parchman, Mississippi, at Mississippi State Penitentiary. Go look at what's going on in Angola, Louisiana, here in Angola, Louisiana, and many other prisons, throughout this country, and how our people are being there, in serious mental health depravity, placed in cells where there's no electricity, no running water, eating foods that have maggots and rat feces and other things laced inside of the food. In cells where there's not enough prisoners to protect those who cannot protect themselves, and they expose themselves to vicious rape and vicious, physical abuse, extortion, etc. So no. Reparations is what we want. Reparation is what we deserve. And any person of color, any Hebrew Israelite who does not understand that, it's time for you to wake up and get involved. Let your voice be heard. Take a stand, resist it, and demand, reparations. It is what your ancestors died and shed blood to make so-called America great again. It's great again thing. That kind of sticks in my claw, so I don't know anything great about America, but it made America the most powerful nation on the planet. It wasn't a railroad system that was the economic engine for America. It was slavery and Jim Crow, and sharecropping, the mass prison industrial complex. Those were the things that undergirded this nation to make this nation great. And we were the labor in all three of those instances, all three of those things that I just shared with you. And even today, you go look at these entry-level jobs, these hard labor jobs where people can't make a living, can't pay their bills, and you go look and see who has those jobs. They are people of color. And it's always been that way. Go look for yourself. And you'll find them all over this country, in every city. The trash collectors, the street sweepers, the hotel workers, the housekeepers, the babysitters, the lawn caregivers, the cashiers, the stockmen. Go look for yourself and see. We're still in a prison enslaved state of economics. Redlining, where we can't get loans. Redistricting, where we cannot have political power so that we can change things in our government. Yes, we need to demand reparations. And we want it in finances, and we also want it in other infrastructure to ensure that our children are not continually abused and enslaved as they are. And I didn't even talk about crack cocaine and the other, the welfare system, how it ran the fathers out of the homes of the parents. And even right now, the child support system, young men, I see them every day. They can't even make a living for themselves because the welfare system has created a situation where that now they're forcing these guys to give up 30, 40, 50% of their income, through child support. You tear down the family, you tear down the infrastructure, and then when this man doesn't know how to stand up and be a father, then you rip his guts out of him by telling him he better go get a job, and then he goes to the job, and 50% of his salary he can't use to uplift himself, and you want to call him lazy and a bum. You're out of your freaking mind. And I say freaking because I'm being kind. I prefer to use the other word, but, I'm working on not, using profanity. At least not, it's not necessary, quite frankly. I can get my point across real easily without cussing your ass out. But you know what? This lie that slavery ended in 1865 and we don't deserve reparations, that is a flat out lie. It did not end in 1865. It's still going on in 2020. Let me tell it. Open your eyes. 2020. What a great way to end this video. 2020 vision. Open up your eyes, white America. Open up your eyes, Hebrew Israelites. And any foreigner who's on Turtle Island, open up your eyes. Our people, my ancestors, created the foundation for your ancestors to be able to come here and have a better life so that you can survive and live in a country without oppression and economic liberty to whatever degree you get it. I'm sure it was better than it was if you're from Nicaragua, El Salvador, San Salvador, Mexico, and many other countries throughout America. You came here for a reason. And the number one reason you're here is to have a better life for you and your children. And guess what? It was our ancestors who built this foundation so that you can have that. So show some respect. Get engaged and stand with us against this lie that we don't deserve liberation, economic liberation and freedom and access to wealth in America by those who stole it from us. No reparations, no vote. Hear me now, hear me tomorrow, hear me forever. Talk to you guys later. DFG, Gideon's Flight. Bye now.